Welcome to the Giants Huddle Podcast. My name is John Schmeelk. Today, we're going to be joined by a member of our broadcast team and Giant legend, Carl Banks. With Carl, we're going to talk about the Giants heading into the Ring of Honor, and of course, going to preview Giants and Cowboys on Monday night. Just a reminder, the Giants Huddle Podcast is presented by PSE&G, energy efficiency for game time and anytime, brought to you by PSE&G. And now we're joined by our broadcast partner, friend of the program, and of course, Giants legend, Carl Banks. Carl, what's going on, man?
Good, man. Never a dull moment. Getting ready for the Dallas game and working on a few other Giant-related things that we'll be talking about soon after this Ring of Honor.
Yeah, absolutely. We can tease that at the end here. The game against the Bears, you might have some fun stuff going on for that, and another game later in the year. But first, let's start the Ring of Honor on Monday night, Carl. You have connections to 5 of the guys heading in, your teammates, Joe Morris, Otis Anderson, Rodney Hampton, Leonard Marshall, and of course, Vice President of Medical Services, Ronnie Barnes, heading in as well. You can take it one by one or however you want. Just tell me about these guys and what they mean to you and why they deserve to be up there with you in the Giants Ring of Honor.
Well, I mean, it's not a matter of being up there with me. They just deserve to be there because of the tremendous standard that they were part of creating. You start with Ronnie Barnes, and he's not only a great human being, but a great friend to not just players or to players' families or to extended families. He's a friend of a friend, right? So someone reaches out to Ronnie and say, hey, Carl Banks said to reach out to you because my kid has something going on. Can you recommend someone to work? He's never not been an assist or a helping hand to anyone that is part of the Giants family or knows someone in the Giants family. So Ronnie is just a great human being, a pro's pro and the best in the business. So, and I knew Ronnie when he used to keep players in check when he had a big oak stick next to his taping table when he was still taping ankles, and guys would come in late and start screaming at him, and he'll take that stick and hit the table and says, you're going to talk to me the right way or else I'm going to hit you. But he's just a great human being. And, the guys that are going in as my teammates, it is truly like a legacy of greatness. Like when you look at the running back chronology, Joe Morris, Otis Anderson, who was someone that we competed against, and then Rodney Hampton. And I can tell you with a great deal of certainty that Joe welcomed Otis with open arms. And they worked together to make each other better. And Otis came in, he was a guy who was a star for the St. Louis Cardinals. And he was a nemesis of ours, right? He walked through the door and only wanted to help us get better. Like he didn't have any baggage with him. Like, hey, do you know who I am? Do you know the rookie year I had? Have you heard of me? Otis came in and he was like, hey, and he told us, I just want to be a good teammate and help you guys in any way I can. And him and Joe worked well together. He worked well with our defense. Like if we needed help with something, and if it was we had to cover in man coverage or something, Otis would run the routes. He's a good route runner. He was a hell of a basketball player, but he would do whatever. Or if there was blitz pickup, right? And, you got me, Lawrence, and some of our big linebackers and Harry going against these small guys, Otis would step in there.
Wow.
It's like, I'm going to give you guys a look. So whenever we needed a look, he was the guy to give it to us. But then when you look at, his relationship with Joe Morris, and then we draft Rodney Hampton, and Otis is there for Rodney and helping Rodney become a pro. And, as it ended up, Otis became a major contributor in both of our Super Bowls. But it was just amazing how, as a group, they helped each other become so much a part of championship football. And last but not least, my guy Leonard Marshall, who, again, you talk about Giants family. My rookie year, Leonard was the guy who took me under his wing, right, and showed me, some of the great restaurants to go to, and how to be a pro, and how to maneuver around the New York metro area in terms of, if you have a passion for something, how to do it, how to network, how to keep yourself out of bad situations also. But the thing about Leonard is, like, people always say, oh, you were in the shadows of Lawrence Taylor. If it wasn't for Lawrence Taylor, your name would have been said more. I think, that's even amplified more with Leonard Marshall, right? Because Leonard and Lawrence played on the same side. And I think Leonard just has not been really given his just due when you start to talk about the likes of Richard Dent and Neil Smith and those guys, those defensive ends. Leonard was just as good, if not better, than all those guys. And he could get you numbers, but he's an ultimate team player. But he was just as dominant over there with Lawrence in his own right. So again, a guy who has to play next to Lawrence Taylor every single down. I would have loved to have him on my side, by the way, but he in his own right, he carved out his own niche. He's an excellent pass rusher, hell of a player against the run, and a really darn good athlete. But he was a guy that you plucked him from our defense and put him at defensive end on any other team, he'd be in the conversation for Hall of Fame probably.
Yeah, and a couple of Giants from past generations too. Defensive back Jimmy Patton and halfback/receiver Kyle Rote will also be going into the Ring of Honor as well. And Giant fans, don't forget to make sure you're at MetLife Stadium for that home game on September 26th. Giants and the rival Dallas Cowboys, Monday Night Football, Ring of Honor at halftime. It's going to be a great game. Limited individual and group tickets are still available. Visit giants.com/tickets to secure your seat today. So, Carl, as you've had a couple days now to ruminate on the Giants at 2-0, what are your biggest takeaways, heading into week 3 here on what the Giants right now you think are doing particularly well on both sides of the ball?
Well, John, I think they're believing that they can win. I think, what we're witnessing as either Giant insiders or Giants fans or Giants observers is a culture shift, a shift in culture. And I say that, and I had a conversation briefly with Joe Shane 2 days ago. I stopped him and I said, Joe, there's a big difference in what I'm seeing in this team. I said, because you got a game at 16-16 going into the fourth quarter. It would be nothing for these players to give it the old pro try and not win it and feel good about themselves and, get to the mic after a game and say, hey, we played hard, and the coach would say the team played hard. We got some things to clean up. But this is a team now, they actually believe they have a chance. They have a chance to win, not hoping, but like they got a leadership group that will give them the necessary plays. Now you look at Wink Martindale never called a game like he was afraid, right? He stayed aggressive the whole game. Mike Kafka called his offense to win the game, not to tie or to try to get to overtime. And that is something that the players feel. They feel that energy, and they go out and they say, okay, let's win this darn thing. Instead of, let's play hard, let's show up on tape and make sure everybody sees that we're a hardworking team and we're just not there yet. Like, you get there sooner when you start to win a few games and you start to believe in yourself. And I'm saying all this, John, to say that there's still a lot of work to do. This is still not the most talented team in the division. So they have to do a lot of things right, and they have to do a lot of things better than they have if they intend to compete or contend within the NFC East. Um, so you got some wide receivers that are not on the same page. Defensively, there are a few things that they got to clean up, and then you got to deal with injury every week. So um, I'm encouraged by what I've seen. I am not unrealistic because I know that this is not the most talented team, and there are going to be some games where the talent difference is appreciable, and you'll be able to see it. But what you'll look for in those games is, execution, to see that if they could still execute against teams that are, at that next level. But it's fun to watch them, enjoy it, and let's see where it goes.
And, Carl, when you talk about it, I think that's why it's so important for Saquon to start playing really well, and then for two of your better defensive players, for Thibodeau and Ojulari, to get back on the field. Right, looks like they could play Monday night. When you're a team like the Giants, and like you said, maybe the roster isn't up to par with some of the better teams in the league, you need your really talented and best players to play their best ball to make those special plays for you to win these type of close games, because it's hard to win close games in the NFL. And if you're going to, you need your most talented players to do it for you, right?
Yes, without a doubt, John. And I think you mentioned Saquon. He is bringing his A game these last 2 weeks. And, he keeps banging at it until he gets one. That's what happened last week. And look, when you get your defensive pieces in place, like I said, injuries, everybody has to deal with them. So you hope your guys come back at the right time, right? If they could come back against some of the better teams, that gives you a better chance upon execution to win a game. So you need your best players when you're not talented across the board. You're absolutely right. And then you also need your best players to be their best selves.
All right, maybe the easiest question I've ever asked you, Carl. So how do you stop Micah Parsons?
First of all, his birth name is Micah Parsons. His football name is Micah Problems. It's Micah Many Problems. I don't know how you stop. You try to contain him. You try not to allow him to wreck the game. And when I say not allowing him to wreck the game, is if you get sacked, don't fumble. Don't let him cause a turnover. You take your sack, you keep moving on to the next play, but you don't want the total disruption of Micah Parsons on your offense, because he's a guy that he's going to make plays. He's going to make plays, and you've got to, the thing about it, you've got to allow enough energy or resources towards stopping him, but you can't give all of your resources to stopping him, because they got some other guys on that defensive front that are just as disruptive on any other day. Like if Micah Parsons wasn't there, they're still going to be disruptive.
And then offensively, Carl, for Dallas, I feel like this is going to be like an old school, Giants Cowboys from the 80s. You guys are trying to stop Herschel Walker. They're trying to stop Otis and Joe. And which team can kind of put this together and run the ball better? I don't think either team's going to try to light up the scoreboard and throw it 40 times. I mean, is that kind of what the deal is here? The Giants have to just stop the run, and then if they do that, things should fall into place?
Well, yes and no. They still have a really good receiver in CeeDee Lamb, and I think Gallup may be back, which is going to enhance their options in the pass game. And I'm not sure if Dalton Schultz is healthy, but if he's there, that's a normal passing offense, whether it's Dak or anyone else back there playing quarterback. And then you have two running backs. You make the comparison to when the Giants were having to stop Herschel. I would say it's more when the Giants were tasked with trying to stop a guy like Emmitt Smith.
Wow.
More so than Herschel Walker, because with Emmitt, much like Ezekiel Elliott, they spot the ball. If you made a good play, they spot the ball as 2nd and 4. That's just those guys they run and fall forward. You tackle. There's very rarely tackles for loss, and then when you add Tony Pollard into the mix for these guys, he's a home run hitter, very explosive. So you've got to stop the run, but their play action game with an effective run game is going to be incredible. And then the same holds true for the Giants. Like if the Giants can get something going in the run game, then their play action game will be effective as well.
All right, the final question, Carl. You said you're working on stuff. Monday night's going to be the white out. Everyone go out, wear your white. The Giants will be in their basically their white uniforms from the 80s. And then the next week it's the legacy game, and we're going to see some old school blue jerseys. I know, Carl, you're doing a big collaboration. Give us a little preview of what's going on for that Bears game.
Yeah, so that Bears game. So when the legacy game was announced, I talked to Pete Gwelly and Neil Shaw at the Giants. They're like, "Do you have any of your old stuff from the '80s or from the '90s or any of when the starter was on the sideline?" So I'm like, "Yeah, I have the red jacket that our defensive staff wore. I have the Bill Parcells blue sweater. I have the actual locker room T-shirt. I have the training camp windbreaker." So we put all of those pieces back on the drawing board, and we were able to reproduce those. So those are going to be available to the Giants fans real soon.
That's awesome. Carl, good stuff. We appreciate the time, my friend. Enjoy Monday night. It should be a lot of fun as a lot of your teammates head into the Ring of Honor. That's Giants legend Carl Banks. And of course, he'll be on the call on WFAN on Monday night. We're on 6:60 a.m. Make sure you check it out. Pre-game show starts at 6:45 with an 8:15 kick. Bob and Carl on the play-by-play. And also, don't forget that Giants TV, the Giants official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and on the Giants mobile app. So fans, make sure you go check it out. We'll have coverage of that all weekend long. And of course, Monday Night Football. Make sure you check it out. We're going to have another couple Giants Huddle podcasts too coming up this weekend. Trying to work on an analyst from ESPN at some point. Don't have a name for you yet. Hopefully we will soon. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to have our normal game preview plus player interview podcast. Julian Love this week. So we'll in depth on him, the defense, and then we'll preview the game with Todd Archer from ESPN. He covers the Cowboys, and Brian Dable with Voice of the Giants, Bob Papa. So make sure you stay tuned for those Giants Huddle podcasts the rest of the weekend. I'm John Schmeelk for Carl Banks. We'll see you next time on the Giants Huddle podcast.